Now that we have our surfacing done, it's time to fine-tune some of the lighting for the day shot. Having the texture done will enable us to better evaluate the initial lighting block that we had done earlier. So the sun, to me, is just very dull and does not convey the strength that is needed for this shot, especially at noon time. So by increasing the directional light to something like 8, now that gives me a lot of power for the sun. Let's actually change the name to sunlight. So once you do your final lighting tweaks, let's get on our indirect lights, which we created earlier as well. So if you're happy with the scene and everything looks great, but you might have some of the surfaces starting to show some attributes which you weren't anticipating because you changed some of the lighting. And that's fine too. We did the light block, we did the initial surfacing. If you need to go back and tweak some of the surfaces, that's fine too. So for instance, the drapes here are just overblown, in my opinion. So I'm going to go to the drapes material and just tone down the subsurface scattering to about halfway, 25%. I just don't want pure white on the drapes. As you can see, this is much more subtle and just better on the eyes. So next step is to do the night light. And to do this, we just need to optimize our scene a little bit. Let's turn off living room, workplace. And let's name this to, let's go to pre-final. Okay. We're going to actually turn off the sunlight and the indirect lights that we had earlier. There we go. So one thing you want to do is you add some additional lights for the nighttime shot. So if you've noticed, we have some uplighters positioned at the base of these columns here, or these beams. And there's uplighters here in the bamboo tank, as well as some downlighters behind the camera. Now one thing you can do is just stick a couple of point lights or spotlights and you can be done. But Modo has a nice thing that it can utilize IES lights, which store specific light and pattern information. This will give your scene added realism, and it punches up your light patterns. And IES lights can be downloaded from any light fixture manufacturer, for example GE. And I would recommend getting a good collection started. And this includes not just downloading, but also organizing and creating usable preview files. Unless you use an IES light preview program, you can't really see the IES light in Modo. So one thing to do, let me just show you a scene app setup for IES lights. So I have a simple plain mesh here. And there's an IES light right there, and the camera that looks straight on to the plane. And I have this set up to 512 by 512 resolution. So you can see the nice pattern of the IES light. If I go to the photometric light, let's hide this one. Let's add a new photometric light. And I went to one of these folders, and I select an IES light. As you can see, I really can't tell anything from the naming. Well, at least I can't. Maybe a lighting expert can. If I take my light out, now I can tell a lot about the pattern and if this pattern is going to suit my scene or not. So to do this, I actually render the image, and I save this image for use on the icon. And on the Mac, I'm using Icon Composer and Droplet. I'm pretty sure Windows also has a workflow for doing that. So you actually tag on this rendered image onto the IES light. And what you get is pretty nice. If I go to my incandescent reflectors, so as you can see here, these IES lights have been manipulated to have the icon preview on them. And it's nice because I can go through them and I can tell exactly what each one has. So for instance, I like this light. It pretty much matches the same preview I had before. So get your collection started and get your previews done so you can just load them up very easily. So to get this started on our actual scene, we're going to add a photometric light. I'm going to go for the 65 RSP. Go top view. I'm going to position my light exactly where the light bulb is. Now, as you can see, the icon of the light is a little bit too big. I can go to my display tab here. Now, if I set this to 0, it'll scale. It'll stay the same size, but it won't be proportionate to my scene scale. So what I'm going to do is set it to 0.1, and that'll set that size proportional to my scene. And I'm going to just move it in the middle of my light bulb. I'm going to go to my right view. I'm going to go rotate this 90 degrees and position it down where my light bulb will be. As you can see, it's starting to affect my beam right here. And what I want to do is instance this and drag it down, duplicate the instance, drag it down, duplicate the instance, and drag it down. I'm going to select those three, change the display size to 0.1, just as before. Make sure that my light is centered around my bulb. There we go. And now I have my 4 lights done. Next up is I'm going to duplicate this one. Actually, let's not duplicate it. We're going to actually create a duplicate of the original. So these are all instances. We're going to call these uplighters. We're going to duplicate the original one and rename this to bamboo uplighters, just so if we need to have a different attribute, we won't be stuck with the uplighters on the beams. So you want to put this in the middle of the bamboo uplighters. Make sure that you go to your right view and drag it down, because these are lower than the beams. They're actually sunken into the ground. Here we go. And now you can instance this one. Remember to change the display size. You can duplicate instances. And one last time. And now I have all of these done for my uplighters. So right now you're not going to see much going on here. You'll need the bamboo mesh for it to be visible. But the nice thing is, once you change any attribute on the bamboo uplighter, that'll ripple down through the instances. Same thing for the normal uplighters. Okay. Let's add another photometric light. And this time we're going to go for the 500R52. And we're going to position this one in the downlight area. Again, change the display to 0.1. Let's go to right view. Take it to -90. And this time we're going to actually take it up to the uplighters. You can see it's starting to affect my scene. Center it on the bulb. There we go. Let's go to Model, go to top view. I'm going to press O, go to visibility, make sure my lights are visible. There we go. And we're going to instance our light. Let's take this to the left. This should be around 1.2 meters. We're going to duplicate this, take it down 2 meters, go back to original instance, down 2 meters. Let's grab those two last lights and duplicate them, their instances. Oops. And move them down 2 more meters. There we go. Select all the new instances, change the display size to 0.1, and we're going to call these down lighters. Go back to your render, try, tab. You can see a nice lighting scheme coming from the back. Now we're going to create a moonlight. We're going to add a new directional light. We're going to call this moonlight. Okay, that doesn't look a lot like moonlight at this point. So we're going to have to go to light, moonlight, and let's just change it to something that's going to be visible to us. There we go. And we're going to change the spread angle under properties to 5 degrees, just to have it very nice and fuzzy. And we're going to tone it down to 1.5. And we're going to go to the shader tree and change the color to kind of a mid-tone blue. There we go. You want to desaturate that color. We don't want it to be too blue. And so we have all our light. You'll notice that it pretty much still looks like it's daylight outside, and that's because of the environment material that we have. So let's create a new layer and add a new environment material. Let's change this one and call it physical day sky. This is the old one, and this one's going to be night sky. And we want to give it a blue tone, a dark blue tone on the zenith. So go to something dark. And then a desaturated tone of blue on the horizon. And you want to copy that same color to the ground color. And a dark gray for the nadir. Let's go for a blue and then just dark. All right. So, pretty happy with almost everything we have. Let's go back to our uplighters. We're going to change the radiance to 10, just to give them a bit more power. And the downlighters are going to go up to around 100. Oh, that's a bit too much. Let's go to 50. Okay, pretty good. And we want to simulate some of the fill light spilling from the living room. So we're going to add an area light. So this is what basically now we're tricking Modo for the lighting. We just want to add a light that's going to simulate light coming from the living room. Oops, we're changing the moonlight here. stay in the top view here, and move this to this area. It's going to be to the right of the camera. Let's increase the size and give it a little bit of rotation. And this will simulate some light coming in from the right side. We'll need to change the color to something that's a bit warmer. Let's change this to a nice warm orange hue. And remember to change the uplighter colors as well to incandescent color. So the bamboo lighters, uplighters, and the downlighters. Just change the original one, the one that's not italicized, and that should help you change the rest of them accordingly. Okay? Go back to your... We're going to change this to a bit more orange here. And we're going to duplicate this area light and take it to the living room area. Rotate it back. Take it a little bit back. It's not hitting too hard. And we're going to make this less orange, more yellow. Okay, let's bring in our items back. And let's save this as it's already been saved as pre-final, so just save over that. Now that that lighting is done. Replace. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So for the night shot, let's get a few things out of the way. Let's turn off filter on selection. Now remember that you have light bulbs that you need to take care of. So for night shots, bulb on has to be on for everything. And we have them on here. I'm not that happy with the lighting coming from the living room, so we need to increase this to, let's go to 6. And let's drag it a little bit back. There we go. And the downlighters seem to be too harsh. Let's go to that one. Let's crank it down to 35. There we go, looks better. And we're going to crank the moonlight up to 2. And we forgot to unhide our bamboo group. And you'll notice that the uplighters under the bamboo are going to cast really nice shadows to the top. There we go. And save. Make sure that you clean up your item list. So uplighters, let's just group these. We'll call these uplighters. Grab the bamboo uplighters, group them, Control G, bamboo up lighters, and we have the downlighters, group, Control G, up lighters. Then we have the area lights. Let's rename these. So side cam fill light. Make sure to give them names that you understand. living room fill light. Okay, let's get rid of the test light. There's no need for that one anymore. And group these ones to fill lights. Fill lights basically are additional lights that you need to just pop up or punch up your lighting scheme. Okay. So to make things easier on myself, I'll grab all these lights. So uplighters, bamboo uplighters, and fill light, as well as the moonlight. And we're going to call these night time lights. Okay. And we'll also add to those the corrugated cabinet lights. So if I look, there we go. Just much nicer lighting with the corrugated lights being on. Alright, so that's pretty much it for lighting and texturing or surfacing. Save, and we'll move on to rendering. So before we go to rendering outputs, I just wanted to make a few changes that I've noticed after looking at this. One being that the shadows on the beams are a bit too harsh from the uplighters, so we're going to change the size of the uplighters as well as the bamboo uplighter. We're going to just change the width to about 0.02 and the height to 0.02, and this will give it some volume and therefore smooth some of the shadows on these lighters. And the other thing is, I don't really like the outside of my building. I'd like to maybe put another uplighter, but this one's going to be coming from the outside. So if I go to my IES light, incandescent, I'm just going to choose a 25R14. Place this one, take it all the way outside, take it right view. So I'm going to take it up 90 degrees. Let's turn off our workplace and our living room. Okay. I'm going to increase the power to something like 50. Also going to give it a width and a height, 50 millimeter on width and height. Let's get the radiance up to something more reasonable for an outside light. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit so it faces my wall. There we go. Okay, that looks much better. I just want to make it seem like there's an actual light outside. Just to give a little bit best highlight on the wall. And we need to go to our shader tree. Change this into neonish bluish tone. We're going to rename this to outside high light and put this into our into our nightlight folder. Okay. I'm also going to change the downlighter see, this one should have been downlight. downlighters group. I'm going to change the photometry light to 300. Just to tone things down a little bit. Take this up to 70. Let's take it up to 100. There we go. Okay, so that's looking more like what I would expect. Turn on the workplace and the living room. And save.